Hi, I'm the Busy Bee Mom, and today's project is to make a tablet cover. So this is what the finished product looked like. See if I can open it here. Open it up, and there's a tablet. Just flips over. Pretty basic. It's just kind of like a book cover, only it goes around your tablet. To make this, you need, first of all, you're going to need some fabric, and about 1/4 yard will be enough. And you can buy two types of fabric. You can buy your outer fabric and your inner fabric. We used a plaid and then the black, so 1/4 yard of each. If you're going to use the same fabric on the inside and the outside, then 1/4 of a yard is still enough, because you actually end up with enough fabric to do two. So pick out your fabrics, and you also need some elastic for these corners. I used 1/2 inch. Actually, at the fabric store I think they call it 3/8, but that's about a good size, so some elastic for that. I also used some elastic to go around the button, just this small cording elastic. And first you need a button, if you decide to use that for your closure method. And the other thing is you need something stiff inside here, and I've kind of been racking my brain on what to use, and I had some mat board, but even that wasn't really thick, and I found a scrap of something that I ended up using. But what you can use, I think what would work good would be a book cover. So if you look at a hardback book, that's even thicker than mat board. So look around and see if you have an old hardback book that you're ready to get rid of, or go to your local thrift store and pick one up for, $1/4, 50 cents, and use that. Because that is stiff, a lot stiffer than a normal mat board or cardstock you can buy. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, to start off, we need to measure our tablet very carefully and add some increments for different things. So when I measured the width of my tablet, it is 4 3/4 now, and then, go ahead and do the length. That was about 7 1/2. Try to be very careful though when you're measuring. Now, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch to each of these measurements, because I want my cover to be slightly bigger than my tablet. That way if it gets dropped, the cover hits before the tablet does. So I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch to each of these. That's going to make this 4 7/8 and this 7 5/8. I'm going to add one more 1/8 of an inch to allow for my fillings. So that gives me 7 3/4, and this gets up to 5 inches. So I need those increments. Now onto these increments, I just need to add my seam allowance. So if I add 1/2 inch on both sides, top and bottom, this simply becomes 6, and this becomes 8 3/4. So now I've got my increments, 6 and 8 3/4. So I need to cut 2 pieces that size. So I'm just going to write cut 2 6 by 8 3/4. And then I'm going to cut 2 more, but they need to be 1/2 inch bigger than this. So they're going to be 6 1/2 and whatever 8 3/4 plus another 1/2 is would be 8 9 1/4. I'll have to double check that. For some reason I think my notes I did before was wrong. Okay, I figured out where my mistake was. I only need to add the 1/2 inch to the width. My length stays the same, so it's still 8 3/4. My notes weren't wrong before. So I need 2 6 by 8 3/4, and then 2 6 1/2 by 8 3/4. Actually, that is why I added a 1/2 inch to that, is because that's how thick it is. The next piece has to be able to wrap around and go to the front, so it needs to be this amount plus the width. And mine, when I measured it, it was pretty much a 1/2 inch wide. So, okay, so you need to cut 4 pieces, 2 of them that are this size, and then 2 of them that are a 1/2 inch bigger. Okay, I've been busy cutting, and this is the fabric we picked for our cover, and this is the fabric we picked for our lining. So when I say cut two of the one size, you cut one of your lining and one of your top fabric. So I have the two smaller ones, and I have my two slightly bigger ones. Really, they're only a ½ inch wider than these, lining, cover. And then I have two 3-inch squares, if you want that, of your lining fabric. I have a piece of elastic, which I'm going to be using for wrapping around my button. It's a little cord elastic. I don't know, this is about 4 inches. And then I have two pieces of black elastic that are also 4 inches. I don't think they need to be that long, but the other thing I cut was I cut my filler fabric, and my son wanted this to be really stiff. So I went through my stash and I was looking for some mat board, and I found this piece of, I'm not sure what it was, but it is really thick. So I cut two of these, and the size of these needs to be your original size plus an 1/8. Because remember, we want it just a little bit bigger, so if you drop it, it sticks out just a little bit. So it is just a teeny bit bigger than our tablet. And I've got two of those, one for the front and one for the back. So we've got a lot of pieces cut. Now we have to start figuring out our sewing. Now, I'm still trying to figure this out. I'm literally figuring this out as we go. So I want to put these two pieces right sides together. This is actually going to be the part that your case is going to be on. But before we do that, we need to have these two squares. Now these are going to be what's going to hold it on the bottom corners. We're going to have fabric on the bottom corners and elastic on the top corners. So what I want to do, and I just made these by folding a square in half. I figured that'd be the easiest way. So I want to put these on here, and I want to go ahead and stitch them. And my seam allowance is going to be 1/2 inch, but I want to make sure my stitches don't show, so I'm just going to go in a little bit lower than 1/2 inch. And I'm going to do those, one on each corner. And hopefully that'll be okay. I tried to measure it and make sure that it was only going to come across the corner on my tablet. It's looking too big, but I think 1/2 inch seam allowance, it should be okay. I tried it earlier, and I'm getting nervous. So you don't want to come in here, because you notice that he's got like buttons on the corners here. So, okay, we're going to sew that one there. And we're going to sew the other one to the other corner. I must have dropped it. I don't know where. And we need our elastic straps across the top, and you're just going to lay them across the top and stitch them also. You might want to lay them on here and see and measure where they land. So if you want to measure the distance from here to here, and then copy that distance on here, and that way you want to cover as much of your tablet as you can to make it secure, but you don't want to go over where there's any buttons. Alright, so sew on your two corners and sew on those. I just came up with a trick for positioning my elastic. I've got the two bottom corners sewn on. And if you lay your tablet and kind of center it, making sure you have kind of the same seam allowance all around, that looks about right. And then you take your elastic and you slide it under there, and you can kind of see where it's going to cross. And all you need to do, if you're a perfectionist, you're going to make sure that this distance is equal to that distance, and then you pin it. Well, maybe. Pinning elastic never works as well as it seems. Pin it there, pin it there, and then we're going to baste it. Now hopefully it'll just exactly come, and then we're going to do that with the other corner too. So by laying it on there, gives me kind of an idea where I need to have it. Okay, I've got my two bottom corners sewed down, my two straps on top sewed, and I've also got a little elastic strap sewed, and that's going to go around a button on the front when we get all done. So if you think about it closing, and this goes around and loops on the button. I did tie a little knot in it just to make sure it didn't come through the stitches because it's so little. Take your other two pieces, put them right sides together, and I want you to sew on 3 sides, top, bottom, and down the one side. Okay? Yeah, top, bottom, and this side. Go do that. Okay, I've got those 3 sides sewn, bottom, side, top, and I've clipped my corners a little bit, not too close to my stitching, but a little bit. And now I'm going to flip this right side out, making sure to get my corners nice and poked out. And then I'm going to slip one of my cardboard pieces in. And I'm going to try to get it so that my seam allowance is on the bottom. It doesn't really matter, but slide that in there, and if you've measured well, it's going to be a good fit. Now, if it's too tight, you can either loosen your stitches or trim your cardboard. If it's too loose, just tighten your stitches up a little bit, make them a little bit closer. So I think it's a good fit though. Okay, so this is going to end up being our cover piece. So this is what's going to start down here, it's going to wrap around the side and finish up on top. So now I have to connect this to my back piece, and that's what these 2 pieces were. So think about this is my cover here, and this is like this here. So I'm going to flip this over like this, centering it, and then I'm going to put this on top of it. Now, this fabric's really hard to tell top from bottom, but I think that's it. And then I'm going to sew along here 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I also want to sew along the side 1/2 inch seam allowance along the top, and that's going to be kind of hard. I'm going to have to try to get this kind of scooted up the way a little bit when I go to do that. But get this sewn first, and that way you can scooch it up and then sew along the bottom, and then scooch it down and sew along the top. Okay, I've got it sewed on those sides with my other thing inside, and I did have to put a different foot on my machine so I could get right up next to this. Took off my regular foot and used a special one. And I'm going to flip it. If everything goes right, I should be able to flip this out. And this piece ends up being just a little bit bigger, just the nature of the task. And there I go. My cover, my back. Now, lumpy. I should, now that I know this is going to work, I need to go back and clip these corners. Got a lot of bulk in this corner especially. So then after you clip your corners, you get to slip your cardboard in. Okay, once your cardboard is in, then you're just going to have to hand stitch this shut. I did go back and cut this off because I needed it a little bit shorter. My son wants the button to be like right here, not way over here, so that's shortened. Now we're just going to line this up, and then we'll hand stitch that shut. And then I think the only thing after that is to sew the button on the front. And then if you wanted, you could run a row of stitching down here. Remember, I've got this extra 1/2 inch in here to fold around the other side, my cardboard here. So if I wanted to stitch along here, I could to help hold that cardboard from sliding, but my cardboard's pretty tight. I don't think it's going anywhere. I wanted to show you the foot I used for my machine real quick. I know I told you to change feet. I used this one because you can get right up next to that edge then, and the foot's not in the way, so that works really good. So here's our finished product. It's all ready to go. Nice tablet cover, and what's funny is my son bought this tablet, and it took him a while to save up the money, and then he didn't have enough to get a cover for it. I really wanted him to have a cover to help protect it, and when he told his friends I was making him a cover, they kind of laughed and were like, what? He's, 11, so they want things nice. And now that I've made him a cover, some of his friends now want me to make them covers also because it turned out so nice. They were very impressed and no longer making fun of him for having a homemade cover. So I hope your cover turns out as nice as mine, and you have a great day, and thanks for joining me on this Busy Bee project.